Hello, my name is Natalie. I want to tell you about my journey, how I learned English step by step at home. I didn't go to an English school. I didn't have a private tutor. I just started from my little room with big dreams. I still remember the day I stood in front of my small wooden desk with a blank notebook and a pen that barely had ink. I was 15 then, living in a quiet town where no one really spoke English unless they were reading something from a textbook. I didn't grow up around English. We didn't have English-speaking guests or English classes that went beyond grammar rules. But something inside me wanted more. I wanted to understand movies without subtitles. I wanted to answer questions in school with confidence. I wanted to listen to music and know what the words meant, not just hum the tune. But most of all, I wanted to feel like I belonged in a bigger world, not just my small town. And I knew, somehow, I had to start with something. Anything. That morning I told myself, just one word today. That's it, one word. It seemed small, but that small promise felt powerful to me. I opened my notebook and wrote the word apple. It was the first word that came to my mind because there was a red apple sitting on the table near my notebook. I looked at it and said the word out loud, apple. My voice was soft. I repeated it again, this time louder. Apple. I felt silly at first. It was just one word after all. But for some reason, saying it made me feel like I was holding a piece of English in my hand. Then I drew a tiny picture of an apple next to the word in my notebook. I didn't know then how important this notebook would become to me. But that first page, with just one word and one picture, was the beginning of my journey. I kept going. The next day, I picked the word book. I was already using the word in my native language, but I had never truly owned the English word. I wrote it down, said it 5 times, and then looked at my bookshelf. This is a book, I said to myself. It felt like learning how to name the world again. Everything around me was becoming new and exciting. Windows, chairs, cups, shoes. I was no longer just living in my room. I was turning it into an English world. My notebook started to fill up slowly. I gave each word its own space. I added little drawings, colored titles, and tried using each word in short phrases. This is a chair. I like tea. I eat rice. They weren't perfect, but they were mine. I spoke to myself all the time, while brushing my hair, while eating breakfast, while folding clothes. I wasn't speaking full sentences yet, but I was naming things. I was practicing, and in a strange way, I was starting to feel less afraid of English. I also made a rule for myself. I could not go to bed without learning my one word. Even if I had a long day, even if I was tired. I had to open that notebook, write down one new word, and say it out loud 5 times. It became my small promise to myself. A kind of discipline I never had before. It was my way of saying, Natalie, you're serious about this. You're building something. One day, after writing the word mirror, I stood in front of my mirror and said it aloud. Mirror. I smiled at my reflection. I had never really looked at myself while speaking English. But in that moment, I felt proud. I didn't care that it was just one word. I didn't care that no one else heard me. I was learning. I was moving forward. Some days were harder than others. There were times when I forgot a word I had just learned the day before, or I couldn't remember how to say it correctly. I would get frustrated and close my notebook. I remember once, after struggling to say vegetable, I threw my pen across the room. I felt stupid, like I was trying too hard and still failing. I sat on the floor and cried. But the next morning, I picked up the pen again. I went back to the word vegetable and said it slowly. Vegetable. Then I whispered it. Then I shouted it. I wrote it again. I told myself it was okay to forget. It was okay to fall as long as I got up. So I kept going. Every day, one word at a time. After a month, I had over 30 words in my notebook. And not just words. I had little memories attached to each one. Chair. That was the day my cousin visited, and we played cards. Cup. That was the morning I spilled tea on my notes. Book. That was the week I stayed up late reading stories in my language and trying to guess how they would sound in English. My notebook wasn't just a list. It was a little record of my effort, my feelings, and my growth. Then something changed. I started hearing those words in real life, in movies, on the radio, and songs. Before, they were just sounds I didn't understand. But now, my ears perked up when I heard apple or mirror or chair. I was no longer afraid of those words. They belonged to me. I had practiced them. I had spoken them out loud. One evening, I was sitting on my bed with my notebook open when my younger brother came in. He looked at my colorful pages and asked, "What are you doing?" I told him, "Learning English." He smiled and asked, "Can I learn too?" That was the first time I shared a word with someone else. I taught him banana. He said it, laughed, and said it again. We ended up writing 3 more words that night. I realized then, English wasn't just something I was learning. It was something I could share. My confidence started to grow. I began to use short phrases in front of my family. "Pass me the spoon." "I want milk." "Good morning." Sometimes they laughed. Not in a bad way, just because they weren't used to hearing English at home. But I kept going. I knew this was part of the journey. I also began using sticky notes. I wrote English words and pasted them on things around the house. The fridge had a note that said fridge. The door had a note that said door. Even my mirror said mirror. It was funny at first, but slowly my family got used to it. My home started to feel like a language playground. I saw English everywhere. It wasn't far away anymore. It was right here with me, inside my room, on my wall, in my notebook, and even in my little brother's voice. Sometimes I would lay in bed and go over the words I had learned. I whispered them to myself. It became a quiet bedtime habit. And even though I was alone, I felt like I had a teacher beside me. A teacher called effort. A teacher called practice. I realized something big. I didn't need a fancy school to learn English. I didn't need perfect grammar or expensive lessons. I just needed to keep showing up, 1 word a day. After about 2 months, I could look around my room and name almost everything in English. I could say small phrases without thinking too much. I still made mistakes, of course. I still forgot words sometimes. But I was no longer the girl who feared English. I was Natalie, the girl who tried. The girl who kept her promise to herself. Then came the day that would change everything. I was sitting at my desk, writing the word television in my notebook. I had learned over 60 words by now. I looked at the television in my room and smiled. I thought, maybe I can do more than just name things now. Maybe I can listen and learn. That thought opened a new door in my mind. I looked at the remote, took a deep breath, and turned on the TV. I went straight to an English cartoon I had seen before but never understood. I didn't expect to catch much, but this time, I caught something. The character on the screen said, "What are you doing?" My eyes widened. I had seen that phrase before. I had practiced it. I said it along with the character. "What are you doing?" I said it again, louder. My heart beat faster. I understood something. Not just a word, but a sentence. And it came from the same small steps I had taken every day. 1 word, 1 phrase, 1 moment at a time. That day, I decided I was ready to listen more. Not just learn words, but hear them in real conversations. I wanted to see how people used them, how they spoke, how they reacted. That's when I began a new step in my journey. I moved from learning one word a day to watching English shows with subtitles. The day I turned on the television and understood the sentence, "What are you doing?" something inside me changed. It was like a light came on in a room I had always been afraid to enter. I repeated the sentence again, my eyes still on the screen. The cartoon characters kept talking, laughing, running around, and though I couldn't catch every word, I felt connected. For the first time, English didn't feel like a stranger's voice. It felt like a friend waving at me from across the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what I had just experienced. That little cartoon, silly and simple, made me feel powerful. I had studied single words for 2 months. I had named every object in my house. But now, I realized something important. English wasn't just about knowing words. It was about hearing them, feeling them, watching how they were used. I needed to see the language in action. The next morning, I woke up with a new idea. I ran to the living room, turned on the TV, and searched for any English show that had subtitles. I didn't want to watch a program in silence anymore. I wanted to listen. I wanted to match the words I saw on the screen with the sounds people were making. I wanted to read and hear at the same time. My notebook was still nearby, but now my learning tool was the TV. I began with children's shows. They were colorful, easy to follow, and used simple language. I remember watching a show about a talking dog and a little girl. The characters spoke slowly, clearly, and always repeated phrases. "Let's go to the park." "It's time for lunch." "I love my puppy." These sentences were not in my grammar books, but they were real. They were alive. I kept the subtitles on and read them like my life depended on it. Whenever a word came up that I had already learned, like apple or book, I would feel a jolt of pride. "I know that," I would whisper to myself, smiling. Sometimes I paused the show just to read a sentence again. I would say it out loud. I would try to copy the tone, the speed, the rhythm. "It's time for lunch. Let's go outside. Are you okay?" I was no longer watching. I was studying without it feeling like study. At first, it was hard to keep up. The words moved fast, especially when the characters were excited or arguing. I missed things. I felt lost sometimes, but I didn't give up. If I couldn't understand one line, I waited for the next. If I didn't understand the next, I still kept going. I told myself one sentence today, one more tomorrow. I had learned that small steps work. I trusted that process again. I created a new section in my notebook. I called it TV phrases. Every time I heard a line that I liked or that was repeated often, I wrote it down. "Come here. I'm so happy." "No way." Some of the phrases were funny, and I laughed while writing them. I even drew little cartoons next to the phrases to help me remember which show they came from. Slowly, my learning began to feel more like play than work. My listening skills began to grow without me noticing at first. One day, my mom walked past the room while I was watching and asked, "Do you even understand what they're saying?" And without thinking, I said, "Some of it, yes." And I meant it. I wasn't translating in my head anymore. I was just watching, reading, hearing, and feeling the meaning. Soon, I moved from cartoons to simple family shows. These were a little faster, but I enjoyed them more because they showed real people talking in everyday situations. Having dinner, solving problems, going to school, I paid close attention to how they greeted each other. "Hey, what's up?" "See you later." These were phrases I had never read in textbooks, but they were everywhere on TV, and I loved them. They felt friendly, warm, and real. One scene changed everything for me. It was a moment in a show where a girl my age was upset with her friend. She said, "You promised you'd be there for me." The line was simple, but the way she said it, with hurt in her eyes, touched me. I paused the screen. I rewound it. I watched the scene 3 more times. "You promised you'd be there for me?" That sentence stayed with me for days. I kept saying it out loud, not just for the language, but for the emotion. I wanted to understand not only the words, but the feelings behind the words. I started mimicking voices. I would watch a scene, pause it, and then repeat the line like an actor. "I'm so proud of you. Don't worry, everything will be okay. Why didn't you tell me?" I practiced these lines in the mirror, just like I had done with my single words before. But now, it wasn't just about saying the right word. It was about saying it with the right feeling. I felt like I was living inside the language. There were still challenges, of course. Some shows used slang I didn't understand. Some characters spoke too fast or had strong accents. But I didn't avoid those shows. I wrote down the parts I didn't get and searched for them later. I asked myself, what does hangout mean? Or what is no big deal? Each new phrase felt like opening a gift. I was unwrapping the secrets of real conversation. My brother, who had once laughed when I pasted English words around the house, now joined me sometimes to watch shows. He would ask questions too. What does that mean? Why did he say that? And I felt proud explaining it. It made me realize how far I had come. From not knowing the word book to helping someone else understand a full sentence. I began using English shows as a daily practice. After school, I would come home, eat lunch, finish my homework, and then sit down for my hour of English TV. It became my routine. Sometimes I laughed out loud at jokes I finally understood. Sometimes I cried when a scene was too emotional. That's when I knew English was no longer just a subject to study. It had become a living language for me, a language that made me laugh, cry, think, and connect. After 3 months of watching daily, my ears had changed. I could catch more words, guess the meaning of unfamiliar ones, and even predict what a character was going to say. I remember once, before a character spoke, I said the line out loud, and then she said the exact same thing. I gasped and laughed. "I'm becoming fluent," I whispered. Not perfectly fluent, not yet. But something real was happening. My speaking also improved without me realizing it. Since I was repeating so many lines from the shows, I had started to speak more naturally. I didn't sound like I was reading from a textbook. I sounded like a person. I sounded like someone who belonged in those scenes. My parents noticed the change too. One day my dad came home with a small surprise, used DVD set of English episodes with subtitles. "I thought you'd like these," he said. I nearly cried. It wasn't just about the gift. It was about being seen. About them noticing that I was serious. That this wasn't just a passing interest. It was my journey. I watched those DVDs like they were gold. I studied every line. I paused often, took notes, and even created voice recordings of myself repeating the lines. I would play those recordings later while walking around the house or doing chores. English was now everywhere in my day. Some nights I would dream in English. I didn't always understand the dreams fully, but the voices were clear. The conversations were soft but meaningful. I would wake up smiling, feeling like my brain had finally started thinking in English, even in sleep. But what truly made me realize my growth was a moment I'll never forget. I went to a nearby shop and there was a tourist asking for help. He was speaking in English and the shopkeeper didn't understand him. I stood nearby watching. My heart was racing. Should I step in? Should I speak? I took a breath and walked up. "Do you need help?" I asked, using the same tone I had heard in dozens of shows. The tourist smiled, relieved. "Yes, thank you," he said. I helped him find the item he needed. using simple English words I had heard and practiced again and again. When he left, he said, "Your English is really good." And I smiled, because I knew this was not magic. This was hard work. This was all those hours of watching, repeating, writing, and never giving up. I walked home that day feeling taller, not because of the compliment, but because I had used my English. It had helped someone. It had created a connection. And that was the whole reason I started in the first place: to belong, to connect, to be understood. From that day on, I told myself, don't just watch, listen, speak, use it. And that's exactly what I planned to do next. I had learned words. I had listened to sentences. Now I was ready to use English with my own voice. I was ready to speak, not just alone, but with others. After helping that tourist in the shop and seeing his smile, I walked back home with a strange feeling. It wasn't just happiness, it was something deeper, confidence. For the first time, I felt like English wasn't just a subject or a skill I was chasing. It was becoming part of my life. I had used it in a real situation. I had spoken clearly. I had understood someone, and they had understood me. I wanted to feel that again. I wanted to feel it every day. But I also knew something else. I couldn't always wait for someone to come along and speak English with me. I needed to create those moments myself. I needed a space where I could talk, listen, read, write, repeat again and again without feeling judged or scared. And so, a new idea slowly started to grow in my mind. What if I made my own English world at home? That evening, I sat on my bed with my notebook in my lap. The same notebook where I had written my first English word, then filled pages with TV phrases and cartoon dialogues. I looked around my room. The walls were plain. My study table had my school books. My shelf had old magazines and some storybooks in my native language. But what if this room, my small quiet room, could become something bigger? What if it could become my English corner? The next morning, I got up early and made a plan. I wasn't going to wait for magic. I was going to build it. I opened my drawer and pulled out all the colorful sticky notes I had left. I grabbed some markers. I found a roll of tape. I took everything out of my school bag that had English on it: old reading books, worksheets, handouts, even packaging from snacks with English instructions. I spread everything on the floor like puzzle pieces, ready to fit together. I started with my walls. I chose one corner of the room, the side with my desk and a small pinboard above it. That would be the center of my English corner. I carefully placed flashcards of common verbs and their past forms. Go went. Eat ate seesaw. I pinned up a list of daily expressions I'd picked up from shows. Let's do it. No worries. I'm not sure. You never know. I even wrote them out in colorful letters, so they'd catch my eye every time I sat down. Then I made a word of the day chart. Every morning, I would choose one new word and write it in big letters on a small whiteboard I placed next to my lamp. Along with the word, I would write a sentence using it. Like, grateful. I feel grateful for my English journey. It became part of my daily routine, just like brushing my teeth or making my bed. This one word each day reminded me to keep moving forward, no matter how small the step. I taped new sticky notes to everything around me again, just like I had done in the beginning, but this time, I added more than just one word. For example, instead of just writing mirror, I now wrote, look in the mirror and say something in English. On the closet, I wrote, what will you wear today? On the door, where are you going? These weren't just labels anymore. They were questions, prompts, mini conversations that pushed me to speak out loud. I didn't stop there. I printed out motivational quotes in English and taped them to my walls. Mistakes mean you're trying. Speak badly today to speak better tomorrow. Every time I felt nervous, those words lifted me. They reminded me that this space, this small English corner, was mine. It was my safe place to fail, to learn, to grow. Soon I added sound to the corner. I placed my small speaker on the desk and played English songs softly while I studied. At first, I could only catch 1 or 2 words. But then, day by day, the chorus started making sense. I began writing down lyrics. I sang along when no one was home. And slowly, I started understanding not just the words, but the emotions in them. The words weren't just words. They were feelings: love, joy, pain, hope. I also recorded myself speaking. I downloaded a voice recorder on my phone and made short recordings every evening. I talked about my day in English. Today, I helped my mom in the kitchen. I watched an English show. I learned the word excited. Then I'd play it back. Sometimes I laughed at my pronunciation. Sometimes I felt proud. Over time, I noticed my voice getting stronger. My sentences became longer. I was no longer afraid to hear myself speak English. Every Friday, I started something new. I called it Conversation Friday. Even though I was still mostly learning alone, I pretended I was in a conversation. I stood in front of the mirror and asked questions like, "How was your day? What did you eat for lunch? What's your favorite movie?" Then I'd answer them like I was 2 people talking. I practiced expressions I had heard on TV. "Really? That's interesting. Tell me more." It may have looked silly to others, but to me it was powerful. I was training my brain to think, respond, and speak in English without stopping to translate. After a month, my English corner didn't just look different. It felt different. It felt like a little world full of possibility. It was no longer just a desk and a wall. It was a place where I could dream in English, where I could speak to myself and not feel crazy, where I could listen to voices I didn't understand yesterday and understand them today. It became my daily classroom and my secret stage. Even when my friends came over, they noticed the change. One of them walked in and said, "Wow, is this your English world?" I nodded, smiling. "Yes, this is where I practice." She looked around and pointed at one of the quotes. "Don't wait to be perfect to speak." She read it aloud. That's a good one. I felt proud, not just of the quote, but of how far I had come. Making my room an English corner did more than just give me a space to learn. It gave me permission to speak freely, to be curious, to be loud, to be wrong. It was like I had built my own small country where the only rule was, try your best. Every day, I started spending more and more time in that corner. When I did my schoolwork, I listened to English in the background. When I wrote in my diary, I tried to do it in English. I even created a mini English box, a shoebox filled with word cards, small objects, short stories, and flashcards. Each evening, I would pick something from the box and speak about it for 2 minutes. One day I picked a spoon and said, "This is a spoon. I use it to eat. I like soup with a spoon." It sounds simple, but it trained my brain to think in English. Some nights I would sit in my corner and close my eyes. I'd imagine myself walking in an American city, ordering coffee, making friends, laughing in English. And in those moments, I believed I could do it. Because if I could talk to my mirror, sing lyrics, explain a word, and make myself laugh in English, then maybe one day, I could do all of it in the real world too. The best part? I started noticing how my English wasn't just getting better, it was becoming automatic. Words came quicker. Sentences flowed without much thought. I didn't have to translate every word in my head. I could look at something and say its name. I could hear a phrase and respond naturally. My brain had finally started living in English. even my dreams changed. I remember one dream where I was at a birthday party and everyone was speaking English. I was telling jokes, playing games, and having fun, and I wasn't nervous at all. I woke up with tears in my eyes because it felt so real. That dream reminded me why I had started this journey. Not just to learn a language, but to live it. To feel confident, free, and connected. And that dream pushed me to take the next step. I told myself, it's time to talk to real people. Even just one. Even if it's scary. I knew my English corner had prepared me for this. I had trained here. I had grown here. Now I was ready to step outside the corner and test my wings. After building my English corner, my room felt like a new world. It was bright, full of energy, and full of English. But even with all those notes, books, songs, and exercises around me, I knew there was still something missing, a voice. Not from a podcast, not from a show, not from a YouTube video, my own voice. I had done so much to bring English into my space. I listened, I read, I watched, I repeated. But I didn't speak much. Not really. I said short words here and there, maybe a few sentences in front of the mirror or while repeating TV lines. But actual talking, freely, naturally, without copying someone else was still scary. My mind knew English better now, but my mouth still stumbled. My voice still hesitated. That night, I stood in front of my mirror, looking at myself. My mouth moved slightly. "Hi," I whispered. "How are you today?" The girl in the mirror didn't answer. I gave a small smile. "I'm good," I said quietly. "I studied English today." My voice sounded soft, unsure, but there it was, my English. Not from a textbook, not from a TV show. It was mine. At first it felt strange, even a little silly. I would wait until my family was asleep, close my door, and whisper short sentences to myself. Today is Monday. I ate rice. I watched a movie. These were simple things, but they were mine. I wasn't just repeating someone else's words. I was building my own sentences, using what I had learned. The next morning, I decided to do it again. This time, I stood near the window and spoke louder. "Good morning. What a beautiful day." I laughed a little because it felt like I was acting. But the more I did it, the more natural it became. I started talking to myself while brushing my teeth. "Okay, Natalie, today you will learn 5 new words. While making my bed, let's make this bed nice and clean. While choosing clothes. Should I wear blue or green today?" These small sentences became part of my thinking. Suddenly, English was no longer just something I studied. It was something I lived. I didn't wait for the perfect moment to speak anymore. I created moments. I talked to myself when I was bored, when I was nervous, when I was excited. I practiced pretending I was in different places. At a restaurant. "Excuse me. Can I see the menu?" At the airport. "Where is gate number 5? At school. "Hi, my name is Natalie. I'm from the United States." I imagined these scenes and became part of them. My imagination became my conversation partner. I'd imagine meeting someone new. "Hi, my name is Natalie." "Oh, hi, Natalie. Where are you from?" "I'm from a small town. I love learning languages." "Wow, that's cool. How long have you been learning English?" "For about 1 year now. I really enjoy it." I smiled after finishing these little pretend conversations. I felt like I was creating my own story, one sentence at a time. There was no one to judge me, no one to laugh at me. I was free, and that freedom made me braver. One day, while washing the dishes, I caught myself saying, "Be careful, Natalie. The plate is slippery." I laughed. I hadn't even planned to speak in English. It just happened. And that was a big moment for me, because that's what I always wanted, to think and speak without stopping to translate. I started keeping a little English diary, but instead of writing in it, I used voice recordings. Every night I'd sit on my bed and record a voice memo on my phone. I talked about my day, sometimes happy things, sometimes hard things. Today I felt tired because I didn't sleep well, but I'm proud I still learned my 5 words. Other times I'd say, I talked to myself in the mirror for 10 minutes. I made a few mistakes, but I didn't stop. I feel stronger now. Listening to my own voice helped me a lot. In the beginning, I didn't like how I sounded. I thought my accent was too strong, my words too slow. But over time, I heard improvement. My sentences became smoother. I paused less. I even started using expressions from the shows I had watched. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Are you kidding me? It was like I had become my own English friend. I also gave myself small speaking challenges. One day I told myself, Natalie, today you will speak for 1 full minute without stopping. I set a timer, took a deep breath, and started, okay, today I want to talk about my favorite food. I really like pasta, especially spaghetti with tomato sauce. I usually eat it with cheese. My mom makes the best pasta. The timer rang before I even finished, and I felt so happy. I had spoken for a full minute, by myself in English. Then I tried new topics. My dream vacation. A movie I watched. What I would do if I had $1 million. A person I admire. I would look around my room for ideas. I'd pick up a pen and say, this is my pen. It is blue. I write notes with it. It is small and easy to carry. Then I'd try using more advanced vocabulary. This pen is very useful for writing quick reminders. I keep it on my desk. I practiced both short and long sentences. Some days were easier than others, but I kept going. I also practiced emotions. I said the same sentence in different tones. Happy. Today was amazing. Then today was hard. Surprised. Oh my gosh, really? Angry. That's not fair. I stood in front of the mirror, watched my face, listened to my voice, and corrected myself gently. No, Natalie, say it slower. That sounded too fast. Or, try smiling this time. Say it like you're excited. This practice helped me become more expressive. It helped me connect words with feelings. Sometimes I even gave little speeches to myself. I would pretend I was giving a talk at school. Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie, and today I want to talk about why I love learning English. These talks helped me learn how to organize my thoughts. I practiced introductions, main points, and conclusions. Little by little, speaking English with myself became like brushing my hair. It was part of my day. Not something special, not something scary, just normal. And the best part? My brain started thinking in English. I didn't always realize it, but sometimes I'd catch myself saying in my head, I need to drink some water, instead of thinking it in my native language. Other times I'd see a bird outside and think, wow, it's flying so high. I wasn't forcing it anymore. English had entered my thoughts. I even gave myself names in English. My old stuffed bear became Mr. Honey. My favorite notebook was Dream Journal. My pillow was Fluffy. And yes, I talked to all of them. Good night, Fluffy. Mr. Honey, you look sleepy. I laughed at myself sometimes, but I didn't care. I was creating a world where English was normal, easy, fun. One night, I was walking home from the store with my mom. I was thinking about something and realized I was silently speaking to myself in English. Not loud, just quietly in my head. But it was automatic. I looked at the street and thought, wow, it's so quiet today. Then I saw a little girl skipping rope and thought, she looks so happy. I smiled to myself. My thoughts had changed languages. I hadn't noticed the moment it happened, but I was living in it now. Talking to myself every day gave me power. It made English real. It wasn't just about passing a test or getting good grades. It was about expressing myself, my thoughts, my ideas, my dreams. I no longer needed a classroom to practice. I didn't need a perfect partner or a native speaker. I just needed my voice. I even started using English when I felt sad or confused. One evening, I was feeling nervous about an exam. I sat on my bed, hugged my pillow, and said softly, "Natalie, it's okay. You're trying your best. You've worked hard. You're learning every day. Be kind to yourself." Those words comforted me. Speaking in English didn't just help me learn, it helped me heal. And that's when I knew I was ready for more. I had built my English world inside my room. I had spoken with myself for months. Now I wanted to speak with others, not just imagine conversations, not just answer my own questions. I wanted someone to respond, to laugh with me, to ask questions I hadn't thought of, to challenge me. But how could I do that? I lived in a small town. I didn't know many people who spoke English. That's when I thought, what about the internet? After months of talking to myself every day, I felt something shift inside me. My fear of speaking had softened. I had become my own teacher, cheerleader, and friend. But even though I had grown so much, I knew that I had reached a point where self-practice was no longer enough. I wanted something more. I needed real people, real voices, real conversations, ones I couldn't control or prepare for. I had made a habit of speaking, but now I wanted to connect. Still, the thought of talking to others made my heart beat a little faster. What if I made mistakes? What if someone laughed at me? What if I couldn't understand their accent? Or worse, what if they couldn't understand mine? But deep down, I knew this was the next step. I had spent so many evenings whispering to my pillow, practicing my lines in the mirror, imagining conversations. It was time to take all those private efforts and bring them into the open. I started with the people closest to me, my family. At dinner one evening, I looked around the table and said, "Can I say something in English tonight?" My mom looked surprised, but she smiled and nodded. "Of course," she said. My younger brother laughed a little, but I didn't mind. I took a deep breath and said slowly, "Today, I read a story about a girl who lives in London. She has a cat. The cat is very funny." My dad gave me a thumbs up and my mom clapped gently. My brother teased me a little, saying, "Wow, fancy accent." But he also added, "That's cool, Natalie." It was short and simple, but it felt like a victory. My first real English sentence in front of other people. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. After that night, I made a small plan. Every day, I would say one thing in English to my family. Just one. At first, it was just little things. "Good morning," I'd say when I woke up. "I'm hungry," I'd announce before lunch. "This food is yummy," I'd say at dinner. Soon, my mom started saying little things back in English, too. "Good job," she'd say with a wink. Or, "You are doing well." It made me feel supported, like we were learning together. Sometimes my dad would ask me, "How do you say this in English?" And I would try to explain it using the words I knew. We laughed a lot during those early conversations. We all made mistakes, but the laughter made everything easier. My brother, even though he liked to joke, became my favorite speaking partner. He started saying silly things in English, like "I am banana" or "you are a chicken." We'd laugh and correct each other. Sometimes we'd have 5-minute challenges. Let's only speak English until the clock says 8 hours. These games made it fun and helped me stop worrying about being perfect. At home, English was no longer just my private dream. It was slowly becoming part of our life, part of our family language. We weren't fluent, and we still used our first language most of the time, but those small English moments became very special to me. Still, I wanted more. I wanted to meet people outside my home, people from different places, people who already spoke English well. That's when I remembered something I had heard in one of the shows I watched, language exchange apps. I went online and searched apps to practice English with friends. I found several. Some looked too complicated. Others were only for advanced learners. But then I found a simple one. It allowed you to chat and talk with people from around the world who wanted to learn your language too. I created a profile. I wrote, "Hi, my name is Natalie. I'm learning English. I like reading, drawing, and cooking. Let's practice together." I was nervous the first time I opened the app. What if no one replied? What if they were rude? I waited a few days before I got my first message. A girl named Sarah from Italy wrote, "Hi, Natalie. I'm learning English too. Want to be friends?" I was so happy I couldn't stop smiling. We started chatting through text first. We used very simple English. We'd talk about our favorite food, pets, hobbies. I learned that she had a dog named Toby and that she loved pizza. She learned that I liked spaghetti and had a cat named Luna. We made mistakes all the time, but we didn't laugh at each other. We helped each other. After a few days, we decided to try voice messages. I remember recording my first one. It was only 20 seconds long. "Hi, Sarah. I am happy to talk to you. I am nervous, but I want to try." My voice shook a little, but I sent it. She replied, "You did great. I'm happy too." Little by little, our voice messages got longer. We spoke about our daily lives, what we ate for breakfast, what books we liked, and funny things that happened at school. I felt like I had a friend on the other side of the world who understood me, not just in English, but emotionally. After Sarah, I made more friends. Ben from Canada, Yuki from Japan, Layla from Egypt. Each one spoke English at a different level. Some were better than me, others were just starting. But I learned something from every conversation. Ben liked to correct my grammar gently. "You said he go, but it should be he goes," he'd say kindly. I'd thank him and try again. Yuki loved to ask questions. "What does though mean?" Layla sent funny English memes and videos that made learning fun. Some nights I'd stay up late talking to my online friends, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. We played speaking games, shared jokes, and talked about dreams. I learned about other countries and cultures, all while improving my English. One day, Sarah and I decided to have a video call. I was shaking before the call. I looked at myself in the mirror and whispered, "You can do this, Natalie." When the call started, she smiled and waved. I waved back. "Hi, Sarah," I said. "Hi, Natalie," she replied. That call lasted 30 minutes. We laughed, made mistakes, helped each other, and at the end she said, "You speak English well." I almost cried. I realized something powerful that day. English wasn't just a school subject anymore. It wasn't something I did alone in my room. It had become a bridge between me and the world. I wasn't just learning English. I was living it. At home, my family was proud of me. My mom said, "Your speaking is smoother now." My dad sometimes asked me to translate things from English for him. My brother would come to my room and ask, "Can we do the 5-minute English challenge again?" English had become a part of our home, just like dinner time or movie night. I also started joining English-speaking group calls through online platforms. At first, I just listened. Then I started introducing myself. "Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm from the US. I like drawing." Slowly, I started joining the conversations. Sometimes I made mistakes. Sometimes I forgot words. But people were kind. Many were learning too. We helped one another. One of the most special days came when I joined a small group speaking session on a Saturday afternoon. The topic was favorite childhood memories. When it was my turn, I smiled and said, "When I was small, my dad used to take me to the park every Sunday. We would sit on a bench, eat snacks, and count the birds. That is my favorite memory." Everyone clapped. Someone said, "That was so clear and sweet." And just like that, I felt something deep inside me open. I was no longer afraid. I was speaking. I was understood. I was confident. Looking back, I never imagined I would go from whispering to my pillow to laughing with friends from different countries. All those quiet nights in my room, all those self-conversations, they had prepared me for this. For connection, for communication, for freedom. I still talk to myself sometimes. It keeps me sharp. But now I also talk with my family. I joke with my brother. I join online group chats. I share stories with Sarah, Ben, and Layla. English has given me a new voice, not to change who I am, but to show more of who I've always been. Now, I don't wait for chances to speak English. I create them.